Today, let's walk through the steps of sewing an outdoor cushion. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are sewing a cushion for this chair using some foam that I got from Joann Fabrics. So the first step is you want to cut out your foam in the shape of whatever you want your cushion to be. Now online I saw many recommendations for using an electric carving knife. I did not have one of those, so I used a box cutter. It did work, but it's definitely not as neat and clean as I think if you would use that electric knife. So here you can see that I have the shape of my cushion and I have it placed on 2 layers of material. So I'm using an outdoor material for this, and I'm just going to be tracing out the shape of my cushion, leaving about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have that traced out, you are just going to cut out those 2 layers so you have both the top and the bottom for your cushion. Now while I was cutting this out, as you can see, my cat decided to help me. For some reason, she just loves these outdoor materials. So I don't know if you have a cat, if you have experienced the same thing, that they just absolutely love the outdoor fabrics. She loves all fabrics, but for some reason the outdoor fabric she just really wants to always lay on. After we did playtime, it was then time to start cutting out the sides or the gusset for the cushion. So as you can see, I have those 2 layers, the top and the bottom, but we need to also think about the sides of the cushion. So for my foam, it is 4 inches thick or like deep. So I'm going to be cutting out a 5-inch wide strip and then the entire measurement around this cushion. So mine was 75 inches, and that is how much I will need all the way around. So I was not able to cut that out in one continuous piece. So I'm going to be now sewing up these strips so that I can have that one long 75-inch piece of material. For sewing this up, I'm just using a straight stitch. If you're using any type of outdoor material, be sure you check if you can actually use pins or not. For mine, quilting clips work much better so that I'm not damaging the fabric, since it does have that water resistant quality. Now I just went through and pinned up the entire strip to make sure that it is the correct measurement all the way around the cushion, and if I needed to reduce any or add more. I did not need to, so now I'm just going to be sewing this all together so I have like one continuous band that I will be able to use around the entirety of my cushion, and then I'm just going to be sewing that all up. And now it's time to start actually clipping this up to 1 layer of your cushion cover. So it doesn't really matter which side you're doing, either the top or the bottom, but you're just going to take one of those layers and then clip the band that we just created all the way around that piece of fabric. And now we're going to start sewing this. So nothing is really too difficult with this. The only thing I would say is if you have curves in yours, or when you get to the edges, you really want to take your time, really pivot through that curve so that the fabric is laying nice and smooth and flat. And I actually do have a link to a video talking about how to sew curves and to give you a few more steps if you are struggling with that area. But overall, the general idea is you're going to go very slowly when you get near the curve. And then as you're continuing on, you're just going to be starting and stopping and lifting up that presser foot to sort of readjust the fabric, and then doing a little bit more of a seam and then readjusting the fabric again as needed. While we're doing this, we're trying to avoid having our fabric be folded up or sewing through multiple layers that we shouldn't be sewing through, and this is going to give us a really nice and neat look when it comes time to turning this right side out. Once we have sewn that onto the 1 layer of our cushion, you can see that we have them both here. And then we have our 2nd layer that we need to now attach to the rest of this cushion cover. So the cat again decided that she wanted to play with this fabric, so I'm just going to be holding this and clipping the 2nd layer of that fabric to the rest of the gusset, but I'm going to be leaving one side open. So whatever is your biggest side, like for mine, technically one side is bigger than the other, you want to leave that open so that we have some place to put our cushion into. So now I'm just going to go through, very similar to how I did before, sewing either the front or the back of the cushion cover onto the rest of the cushion cover. So making sure everything's connected, being careful when I'm at those corners that I am going very slowly, taking that curve so that it all lays nice and flat and smooth. At this point, once you have that done, you can turn your cushion cover right side out. So we have that really big opening, so this shouldn't be a challenge. Be sure you are kind of poking out those corners so that everything is nice and open and ready for your cushion. Now, the thicker the foam you use, the harder it may be to try to get it into the cushion cover, but it will go in there. Especially, I noticed that for mine with the Oly Fun fabric I was using, it just did not want to work with the foam, so it did take a little bit of wrestling to get it in. But as you can see, we have the cushion cover on our cushion, so now it's just time to close that opening that we had. I'm just going to be hand sewing this closed. There are lots of different ways technically that we could have done this opening. If you really wanted to, you could have added a zipper so that you would be able to reuse this in the future, but I am just going to be hand sewing this closed, taking a whip stitch going all the way through and just closing this up. I found that this worked really well, and here is what my cushion cover and the cushion looks like. So as we talked about earlier, we can't see any of those like the messiness that came from using the box cutter. It is all covered up now. We have this really nice cover on it. Again, I'm using Oly Fun fabric, so it kind of has that water resistant outdoor property. You could use whatever type of outdoor fabric you wanted to for this cushion. And then when you're doing this, be sure that you are checking the thickness to make sure that it does fit in your chair. So here is what the cushion looks like. I absolutely love it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.